Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Elise, and this is 10 to Life, your one-stop true crime stop where we talk everything true crime. So if you are checking out the channel for the first time, welcome. I hope you appreciate today's video and coverage, and if you do, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you can check out videos in the future about similar cases and other cases, because unfortunately, we know there are no shortage of crazy true crime cases out there. And for all of my returning 10 to Lifers, welcome back. Happy to have you here with me today, as always. All right, so let me see here, guys. How am I going to tee this up for you? And the case that we're talking about today is one that is somewhat reminiscent of the current Quentin Simon case that is going on. It's a mix of a little Megan Boswell. I mean, it's just wild. It's a longer one too, so just hang tight. You're going to be with me for a while because we have got a lot of details, photos, footage, videos, a lot to go over here. It's one that I'm not seeing really anybody talk about, which seems a little crazy, but you know, that means we are going to talk about it here. So guys, let's jump right in.
10 to Life with Elise starts right now.
In the last few years, there have been a lot of missing children's cases, often from parents who are the main suspects, if not the alleged perpetrators. Some recent examples come to mind, like the West twins, Orrin and Orson West, Summer Wells, and most recently, Quentin Simon, who was allegedly thrown into a dumpster by his mother like garbage. All of these children have yet to be found, and they are only 3 examples out of hundreds of cases that unfairly get less attention. So what is it that makes a parent do such a heinous crime to their own children? How does this happen, and more importantly, why? Well, we are going to talk about a case today that is going to leave you speechless and wondering just that. Nancy Reed was born in Houston, Texas on December 23, 1996. She was about 5 feet tall with a small frame and a light to medium brown complexion. She liked to wear her long hair and sometimes braided it with highlights that complemented her skin tone. Now, this woman was gorgeous. Nancy literally looked like this Barbie doll, in my opinion. She had light freckles, high cheekbones with a perfect smile. She clearly loved music and dancing as well. The only social media account I could find of hers was an old TikTok account where she was only active from 2015 to 2016, which was before TikTok was like literally even a thing. And I believe that was around the same time that she met Jiren Lee. Not much personal information is known about Jiren, other than he's 26 years old and from Louisiana. It's unclear how the couple initially met, but Nancy and Jiren had been together for years. They had 5 young daughters together and at some point had a common law marriage. Now, if you're unfamiliar, a common law marriage basically means it's an informal marriage where both parties show proof that they agree to be married and choose to live together and basically pretend to be husband and wife just without the marriage certificate. However, for this couple, they had a very toxic relationship. It was described as violent and also could be abusive. And this was described by multiple family members. They had a clear example of a DV relationship, but apparently, to them, they were in too deep. Now, I've done a lot of research into DV relationships over the years, and in the United States alone, statistics of DV amongst men and women are staggering. Every minute, nearly 20 women and men are physically injured by an intimate partner. During 1 year, this adds up to more than 10 million people who are subjected to these attacks annually. Just imagine the sheer amount of people that truly is. And the scariest thing about this is that most cases go unreported to police, which makes you wonder, how accurate can these numbers even really be? It's probably much higher. Couples in toxic relationships often don't even realize when they are being whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, which could be why Nancy stayed with Jiren as long as she did. For women like Nancy, the most dangerous time in these relationships is when they try to leave and escape their attacker. According to statistics, women who try to leave are 75% more likely to be murdered. Last month on the evening of October 18th in Clear Lake, Texas, Nancy Reed called 911 at 8:30 p.m. Responding officers arrived at the Sonesta Extended Stay Suites where Nancy had been staying with her 2 children. She had been in an intense argument over custody of the children that she shared with her common-law husband, 26-year-old Jiren Lee. Responding officers with the Houston Police Department said that Nancy was staying at the hotel with 2 of their daughters, ages 1 and 3, in an attempt to leave Jiren. The officers talked to the couple and the issue was reportedly settled without incident or injury. When the officers left, they said that the couple seemed fine. Now, I really do wish that they would release the 911 call. Nancy called the police clearly because she feared for her safety, but because of the lack of physical evidence, they failed to arrest Jiren. This legal loophole frustrates me to no end, and I really wish we could also see the body cam footage and see how they handled this situation. I can't help but wonder if they even separated the couple and what they did to settle the issue. Because apparently the issue wasn't settled. Just 2 hours later at 10:30 p.m., Jiren Lee called 911, saying he strangled his common-law wife because he thought that she was choking their 3-year-old daughter. The responding officers returned to this hotel where Jiren told investigators that after she tried to choke their 3-year-old daughter, a fight ensued and she went after him. Nancy apparently tried to grab his throat, but he was able to duck her advances, preventing her from grabbing him. Jiren then held Nancy's arms from behind and put her in a chokehold. When she almost got free, he then proceeded to wrap his legs around her. He kept her in that position until she stopped moving. It was then, he told police, he called 911, all while their 2 daughters witnessed the entire attack. When Harris County Constable deputies arrived, they found Nancy Reed on the floor with trauma to her neck. First responders tried to perform CPR and transported her to the hospital, where she was later pronounced dead. During the attack, the children were unharmed and taken into CPS services until they could be placed in the custody of relatives. Jiren was detained at the scene for further questioning, and an hour later, at 11:30 p.m., he was arrested at this same hotel, the Extended Stay Suites, on 525 Bay Area Boulevard in Clear Lake, Houston. Jiren was charged with the murder of Nancy Reed the following evening, on October 19th. And his bond was set at $250,000.
Now to new developments in a story we brought you yesterday morning as breaking news. A man accused of killing his common-law wife.
So overnight, that man appeared in court for the first time. Our Rochelle Turner is live in downtown Houston with how much the judge set the bond for that man. Good morning.
Good morning, Owen. A judge set bond for 26-year-old Jiren Charles Lee at $250,000. He is charged with murder. Take a look at his mugshot. Here's what we know right now. He is accused of killing his common-law wife, Nancy Reed. And during PC court last night, officials stated that Reed went after their 3-year-old child. Lee stated that Reed tried to choke him, but he talked to his head and prevented her from grabbing him. Officials say Lee was holding Reed with both of her arms from behind her and put her into a chokehold. Officials say Reed was starting to free from him, so he wrestled her to the floor, rocked his legs around her waist, also having his arms around her neck. Lee stated that he held Reed into a position until she became unresponsive, and at that point he called 911. She was taken to the hospital and died. Take a listen to what a judge said last night.
I'm going to find that he's indigent. Mr. Lee, you'll have the following bond conditions in your case, sir. You're not to have any contact whatsoever with the family or household members of the complainant, Nancy Reed. You to surrender your passport or any travel documents to the court registry.
And under those bond conditions, Lee cannot also leave Harris County, and he cannot possess any firearms. Their 2 children have been placed in Child Protective Services. His next court appearance is scheduled for tomorrow.
An expert on DV cases in Houston said that strangulation is a predictor of fatality and lethality, meaning if someone tries to strangle you, they are actually trying to squeeze the life out of you. This often ends in death for the victims. So a police officer asked, what could we have done better? There's always that evaluation. What can we do to prevent this in the future? It's usually the same victims, same offenders, and we're looking to get the victims more resources.
But I want to talk about the victims here. This young woman in her 20s is dead, and her two children, aged just 1 and 3, were there when it happened.
It seems to show up in your headlines daily. Cases of domestic violence turn deadly even. People need to know that there are resources and help out there.
The latest case at this Clear Lake hotel. Police responding first at 8:30 last night after she called about an argument over custody. 2 hours later, they say he called 911, saying he had strangled her because he thought she was choking one of the children.
What could we have done better? There's always going to be that evaluation. What else can we do to prevent this in the future?
Houston police acknowledge there's often little they can do when it comes to domestic violence cases. Victims aren't always ready for help, and frequently cases lack necessary evidence to criminally pursue.
Well, on October 20th, in a shocking press conference that was held at Memorial Park behind Jiron's home, Sergeant Roberts said that while investigators were looking into Nancy's murder, they realized one of their 5 daughters was unaccounted for. 2-year-old Nadia Lee was last seen on or around Sunday, October 16th. 2 days before her mother was killed. She was last seen near the 300 block of South Ritchie Street, where Nadia was staying with her father Jiron at his apartment complex, Fall of Los Villas. After his arrest, Jiron Lee initially told investigators that Nadia went missing while he was taking out the trash at apartment 55 on the 2nd floor of the building. He said he didn't call 911 to report her missing because he assumed her mother Nancy came and got her. Ever since he made that statement, he has lawyered up and gone completely silent. Nadia Lee is described as a missing and endangered black 2-year-old female toddler with light brown skin and brown eyes. She's about 2 feet 5 inches tall and weighs about 50 pounds. She has short, curly, dark brown hair and was possibly last seen in a white, short-sleeved shirt in that area of Pasadena, Texas at about 8 p.m. The Houston's Missing Person Division initially began the investigation, but when they received information and evidence of foul play, the Houston homicide investigators took over the case of Nadia's disappearance. Sergeant Roberts said during this press conference, "Since then, we have received information as well as digital forensic evidence to determine that there was foul play involved." They also collected DNA evidence at the scene of the crime at Jiron's apartment. Now, Jiron has not shared any new information as to the whereabouts of Nadia Lee. Authorities said that she had been placed in his custody for a very short period of time. They spent most of Thursday, October 20th, combing through Memorial Park in Pasadena, which is adjacent to the apartment complex that Nadia was last seen at. While the police do have hope that Nadia is still alive, they aren't taking chances, and they're working on this case as a homicide investigation. Texas EquiSearch is providing help in the search for little Nadia as well, which off-the-record sources say they believe that Nadia was killed in her father's apartment. Tim Miller of Texas EquiSearch checked Memorial Park and the bayou next to Jiron's apartment, and he said, "I don't think that this is going to have the positive outcome we would like it to have, and that one of his biggest fears is that there will not be an outcome, that they checked the bayou just in case she's in there, and she still, if she is, hasn't started floating yet." After losing her daughter at the hands of Jiron, Nora Reed spoke on Nadia's disappearance, asking why would he do this in front of his innocent children? It's just heartbreaking. And at the first sign of violence, just get out as fast as you can. Saying that her loving daughter and granddaughter did not deserve this and that she just wants to bring precious Nadia home. Nancy Reed's life was in jeopardy in her last attempt to get away from Jiron Lee, and that last attempt cost her everything. Her sister made a point to say that Jiron had done so much damage to Nancy and her extended family. So while Jiron Lee sits in Harris County Jail on $250,000 bond, he remains silent on where his 2-year-old daughter's whereabouts are. He could face more charges related to his daughter's disappearance in the future, however. Relatives told reporters that they were trying to help Nancy escape what they felt was a DV relationship. They didn't have much contact with the children and couldn't provide much more information into Nadia's disappearance. The little toddler had been reportedly staying in Louisiana with Jiron's relatives. Nancy's sister Delia says that Nancy refused to accept their help. She explained how Nancy wouldn't let the family in. She said that they had tried multiple times to get her away from Jiron, but that she never accepted their help. They would go back and forth from Texas to Louisiana, but changing locations didn't change them. On October 21st, officers said that they watched on CCTV what appeared to be Jiron pushing a stroller around a dumpster for 20 minutes the evening of the 16th. 5 days after Nadia's disappearance. And EquiSearch founder Tim Miller made a point to say that it would take a miracle to bring her back alive. Volunteers with Texas EquiSearch have scoured the area of Pasadena where she went missing and searched an undisclosed location 2 to 3 miles from the Memorial Park, as well as Crown Hill Cemetery about a mile away from the apartment complex. The FBI has also locked down a landfill about 31 miles from Jiron's apartment. So I know what you're thinking. Police last saw Jiron pushing a stroller near a dumpster at the last location that Nadia was seen. And now the FBI have locked down a landfill not too far away. So this already sounds so much like the Quentin Simon case, right? We're going on 3 weeks with no sightings. So I just hope that he didn't throw his baby in the trash. I cannot understand what is wrong with people. After days of searching, Tim Miller expressed his doubts that little Nadia may ever be found. Now, he has been doing this since the year 2000 when his own daughter went missing. Tim Miller and members of Texas EquiSearch are veterans at this type of search. They gather at the location, they unload their four-wheelers, their equipment, and they travel all over local terrain to help law enforcement find the missing. However, this time, everyone has expressed their doubt. Since the areas surrounding the apartment in Pasadena have not provided any answers, it's pretty obvious that they feel foul play is involved.
But now on the news at 6, crews are doing everything they can to find 2-year-old Nadia Lee, but they say they are losing hope. That toddler last seen this past Sunday, just 2 days before her mother was murdered in front of 2 of her siblings.
And tonight her father remains in jail accused in her mother's death. But the biggest question now is, where is Nadia? ABC 13's Maya Shea joins us live with what we've learned tonight. Maya?
Well, we know that Texas EquiSearch were out here, frankly, all day long trying to have some trace and try to get a good idea of where little Nadia Lee may be. They don't seem to have a handle on it right now, and that's frustrating. Houston police telling us their investigators have kind of gone back to the drawing board trying to get more evidence because they are hoping to solve this mystery.
It's been 6 days since little Nadia Reed was last seen alive, 4 days since her mother, Nancy Lee, was murdered, and 3 days since her father, Jiron Lee, was charged in her mother's death. And now, the man leading the search for the 2-year-old is ever less hopeful.
I think it would only be some crazy miracle if she was ever found alive. I'm starting to feel as though it's very possible it's going to be a miracle if she's ever found, and I hope that I'm wrong. I think the best that we can hope for is to find a little body and attend a funeral one day next week, but I'm not really optimistic at this time. That
Tim Miller and members of Texas EquiSearch are veterans at this type of thing, searching over urban and rural terrain, finding the missing. But the area surrounding Jiron Lee's apartment in Pasadena has not yet yielded any answers.
It's pretty obvious that they feel as though there is foul play involved.
Just a day ago, Nadia's relatives spoke out about their efforts to get mother and children away from Jiron Lee, and the last time they saw the toddler.
He brought her over to my mom's house this past Friday, and he left with the baby, and this is all we know. Now the baby is missing, so we don't know anything.
Now they are planning one funeral, not knowing if they have to plan another. Tim Miller wants to give them some answers.
My concern is and my hope is that the sooner she's found, the better off it's going to be able to determine the cause of death, and hopefully there'll be some evidence to go ahead and move the investigation forward.
And if she is found, Lee could face additional charges.
At the time of these search efforts, little Nadia's family was busy planning the funeral of her mother, Nancy Reed, which was held on October 29th. They also started a GoFundMe, which I will link below, and that is going to be used to help pay for any upcoming expenses, as they are expecting to also have to bury little Nadia if her remains are recovered. Intensified search efforts continue to yield no results. It has left the families heartbroken, and it's just been extremely tough. They say that they want him to know that we love him, and we just want him to tell us where Nadia is. Quanisha Lee, Jairon's sister, said she hasn't spoken to her brother in over 2 years, and said that Jairon and Nancy were a very toxic couple and in a very toxic relationship. She expressed her hopes for little Nadia to be returned safely, and she hopes that Jairon will come forward with more information. She made it clear that she would never have thought that he would kill Nancy or do this to his daughter. This event was clearly painful to both families, as they are still coming to terms with a toddler's disappearance and the death of a beautiful young mother, as well as the other children who have to grow up knowing what happened to their family.
Intensified search efforts for 2-year-old Nadia Lee continue, a tragedy that has left 2 families heartbroken.
It's been very tough.
Quanisha, who has asked us not to show her face, is 26-year-old Jairon Lee's sister. She says she hasn't spoken to him in 2 years. She says her brother and 22-year-old Nancy Reed were in a toxic relationship.
It was always them, so it's no matter how much we try to get Jairon out of the situation or even get Nancy out of the situation.
Lee has been charged with Reed's murder tied to a domestic dispute that happened this week.
That's not his character. So it's really sad. The outcome is sad for Nancy too, and her family as well.
Family members say the couple have 5 children together.
It's very hard knowing that, one day they're going to grow up and see all of this.
Police say 2-year-old Nadia was last seen at Lee's Pasadena apartment Sunday. They say evidence found inside the apartment point to foul play. Still trying to wrap her head around the situation.
We just really don't want to believe that she is gone.
Quanisha says she's hoping her brother comes forward with some sort of information.
We just want him to know that, let us know.
Both of Nadia's parents had been in and out of jail in the last few years. On October 24th, court records started to reveal new details about what may have led to all of this. Even before Nadia was born, court records show that there were problems. Both of the little girl's parents have spent the last few years in and out of the Harris County Jail. According to court records, Jairon Lee has been convicted of minor offenses like theft and giving an officer a false report. On Nancy's record, however, there is a history of family violence. After an Amber Alert was issued for her and one of her children in 2018, Nancy was convicted of aggravated assault on that child, and a protective order was filed against her. It was a different child other than the one that is currently missing. However, at one point, Nancy wrote to a judge apparently begging for help. In 2018, the records show that Nancy had sent a letter to the judge asking for them to intervene and to help, telling the judge that the accusations from Jairon against her were false and that she was currently pregnant and suffering from postpartum depression.
Tonight, court records reveal new details about what may have led to all of this. Grace White joins us now with what she's been able to find. Grace?
Even before Nadia Lee was born, court records show her family had problems. Both her parents spent the last few years in and out of the Harris County Jail, and at one point her mother even writing a judge begging for help.
There's typically a history. It's a cycle.
As Houston police try to find missing 2-year-old Nadia Lee, court records reveal what was happening at home years before.
I think it's really easy for us to look at that and say, wow, like we missed a lot, but we did.
The little one's mother, Nancy Reed, was strangled to death. Houston police arrested the girl's father, Jairon Lee, for murder, but it was him who called authorities. He told them he was trying to keep Reed from harming their children. Domestic violence cases, Michelle Sachs with the Houston Area Women's Center says can be challenging to investigate.
There was a lot of nuances to what was happening, and not just on that particular day, but again, there was a long history there.
According to court records, both parents have spent the last few years in and out of the Harris County Jail. The father convicted on minor offenses like theft and giving an officer a false report. But on the mother's record, there is a history of family violence. After an Amber Alert was issued for her and one of her children in 2018, Reed was convicted of aggravated assault on that that child, and a protective order was filed against her. It was a different child than the one currently missing. Later that year, court records show the mom sent this letter to the judge asking for help, saying the accusations were false, that she was currently pregnant and suffering from postpartum depression.
It is heartbreaking, it really is. My heart is just broken in half.
Both the mother's family and the father's family have spoken to KHU 11, praying for the 2-year-old's safe return.
We just really don't want to believe that she is gone.
HPD homicide detectives are now involved in the search for Nadia.
Children is one of the big barriers to leaving. Again, in this situation, there was 5 kids. We don't want to see kids hurt by any means, so I think that's another reason to try to help.
Help advocates say this case is a reminder of why more resources are needed.
After the court record developments, a week passed by before there were any updates. During that week, on October 29th, a funeral service was held for Nancy. She was killed and laid to rest in October, which is DV Awareness Month, never knowing what happened to her baby girl Nadia. I can't help but think of Nancy staying in that hotel trying to get away from Jyron. I think she was finally ready to leave him and his attacks, and I believe that he sensed that. I think he also probably thought she was going to turn him in for maybe whatever happened to Nadia. I think he knew that this was the final time that they would ever end things and knew that there was not going to be any sort of reconciliation or repair in the relationship. Once he realized that he no longer had control, he did the unthinkable and allegedly killed her in front of their own children, and whatever he's done with Nadia at this point, allegedly. When he showed up at the hotel without the toddler, Nancy had to wonder where Nadia was and why Jyron wouldn't bring her with him. That had to have crossed her mind. So was it a confrontation? Did she confront him asking where she was? How was he just going to leave a toddler at his house with nobody watching her? Nancy probably knew something was wrong, and I think that she may have died for it. I can't help but assume that that's why she called the police at 8:30 on the 18th, and then 2 hours later, she was dead. It seems a little too convenient to me. It really just does. I know he pushed a narrative about his common-law wife being abusive towards him, but, and yes, she may have made mistakes, but she never took her child's life or killed her husband in front of her children. That we know of. Yet, allegedly, Jyron did. Nancy was such a beautiful woman, inside and out. I know she wasn't perfect, but she loved her kids and did not deserve to die. I watched her TikToks from before she met Jyron, and I saw such a bright young girl with so much ahead of her. If she only knew her worth, maybe she would have left sooner, and this would have never happened. I'm sorry, but I look at him, and all I think about is how badly this man needs a bath. Like gross, disgusting, ew. Look, it is so important to know the signs of being in a toxic relationship and knowing what you need to do in order to safely get out yourself or your children, to get out of that environment entirely. On November 1st, an update was provided by Tim Miller with EquiSearch. They began searching a privately owned landfill just off Highway 6 in Alvin, Texas. Since they've searched everywhere and found nothing, it seems pretty probable that the last time that Nadia was seen, she was in a stroller being pushed by her father for those 20 minutes by a dumpster. The EquiSearch team is prepared to dig through trash up to 8 feet deep in the landfill looking for any evidence that might be linked to Nadia's disappearance.
Just off East Highway 6 in Alvin, EquiSearch crews looking for any sign of 2-year-old Nadia Lee, who police say was last seen in her father, Jyron Lee's Pasadena apartment. Investigators say video shows Lee walking around a complex dumpster, pushing a stroller.
Certainly hope it won't be here, but just in case it is, we got a lot of work ahead of us.
EquiSearch's Tim Miller says the area they're searching that's been roped off for about a week is the size of a football field and could require them to dig 8 feet deep.
We're going to have 2 big track hoes and 1 bulldozer.
Nadia's father, Jyron, is charged with the murder of Nadia's mother, Nancy Reed, who police say was strangled to death.
Early on, the very first day, it was pretty apparent that it probably wasn't going to end good. And
Miller says EquiSearch crews are looking for anything related to the case that could help them, including addressed mail, as they continue their comprehensive search.
18 people that are literally just cutting open every bag.
As crews search for answers.
I'm hoping that ending's not going to end up in a landfill, but But right now, wherever the ending ends up, you know, it needs to have an ending.
Jiren is a sick individual, and that's just my opinion. And even if they were to find Nadia safe and sound, it's not going to change that. I have a feeling he threw his own flesh and blood out like trash just to spite Nancy. It seems a little too coincidental that Nadia was last seen by a dumpster near his apartment. The authorities searched Jiren's apartment and found evidence of a homicide. So it really makes me wonder, for those 20 minutes that he was pushing her around, was she even alive? Luckily, Texas is ground zero for capital punishment. For all I care, he can go to trial, plead not guilty, so that he has a chance at the death penalty. But honestly, even that's too good for him. Again, Nadia is Nancy and Jiren's missing endangered 2-year-old child. And she, technically, should still be thought of as alive. She is described as having a light brown complexion with short curly hair and brown eyes. She is 2 feet 5 inches and weighs about 50 pounds. She is a sweet and loving baby and needs to be brought back to her family, whether to live or to rest. So we'll keep you updated as this story progresses. This is the second child missing that is likely in a landfill since September of this year. I just cannot and will never understand why a parent would do this to their child, or how a husband could kill his wife in front of their children. It's beyond upsetting. And I would like to know your thoughts on this. What do you think happened to Nadia? Do you think that something happened to her and Nancy confronted him and that's why things got bad with them and why he ultimately killed her? Do you think that maybe Nancy had something to do with it and he was retaliating against her? Do you think that she knew and he was worried she was going to blow the whistle? What do you think the real story is here? Because obviously we're not getting Nancy's side of it. We can't know from Nadia what's going on, and now Jiren's not speaking. So we only have the bits and pieces of information to go on. Also, if you have any additional information on Nadia's whereabouts or anything regarding Nadia Lee, please call the Police Homicide Division at 713-308-3600 or call Texas EquiSearch at 281-309-9500. I'm going to keep you guys updated on this case, so check back, make sure you're subscribed if you're not already, and let me know in the comments what you think. How did this happen and why did this happen? All right, guys, until the next one, stay safe. Bye.